Wednesday night notification crew, who's in the house tonight so far? Wednesday night episode 2, Text to the Stars. Text to the Stars, where we sit on a Wednesday night and listen to smart people talk about working with smart people. And tonight, I am very, very, very excited to bring you guys guitar tech extraordinaire, Roy Witte. Yo, Boyitz is in the house. First one in the house tonight, Boyitz. Shout out, Boyitz. Good to see you, buddy. Boyitz, a local bass player. And tonight we have a reasonably local person here. We got a Maryland person, Roy Drake Witte, also known as Boomer, who has worked with several people. As you can tell from the title, he guitar teched and actually got to mix Bruce on a couple of little things, but he guitar tech, backline tech, Bruce Springsteen, worked with Steve Lukather and Toto, worked with a lot of names that he's going to tell us all about, including Ringo Starr. So get your questions ready for the evening. If you're watching on the replay, make sure you like, subscribe, and share so that you can catch subscribe, and share so you can catch the notifications on when I do these streams. We're doing Text to the Stars on Wednesday nights. And I'm going to bring Mr. Boomer, Roy Witte, here in just a second as I bring my music down. And hello there, Boomer. It's good to see you. Let me unmute the mic. Yeah, there you are.
Sunday, dude. Chilling, man. Good to be here. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm doing good. I just doing the Wednesday night thing. We did our inauguration load, the beginning of our load out today. So that's all happening, and doing all of our techie stuff on our side as far as Maryland Sound is concerned, and
loading out the load in.
Loading out, moving some stuff so we can move it again, and that's what we do on these things. So, thanks for being here, Boom. I'm really, really excited to have you.
Wow, it's been a while. I'm glad we get to hook up and do this. This is what's happening. This is
where it's at. The virtual meeting rooms. This is it. And on this, in case you, the viewer, has not seen what we do, I like to talk to a person that I know that has worked with some really good people. And I really like to find people that especially have musical background. In this instance, Boomer and I have worked together in a few different instances, and I know he's a killer guitarist. As you can see behind him, he has some great instruments. And I'd like to talk about how he kind of evolved and what kind of transitions and how it felt to move from the musician kind of a situation to working with people. And my dad's here to say hi to you. So, hey there. Hey, Pops. Good to see you, buddy. So, Boomer, without any further ado, let's do some introductions on you. Yes, and let's talk about where you started.
Oh man. Well, really, it started as like back when I was a kid. It was weird. There was a Sunday brunch thing. Long story short, a jazz musician broke a string. I saw that. He let me be a part of changing it. And it was
how old were you? This Sunday brunch, like
I was like 8 years old, I guess.
8 years old, okay.
Yeah, and it stuck, and it carried with me for a while. And then, in my teenage years, like most guys, at some point you come across the guitar. And I was lucky enough to have, a father that was cool enough to, like, he hooked me up with the guitar. I had some friends that were rocking out. And so I went from that. I bought a guitar, and then, of course, the progression to bands in your teenage years, and then involved me a couple little small gigs that led me to realizing that I needed to be a sound guy. And then that just opened up a whole bunch of things for me. And then, I find myself one day sitting here, like most people are doing now with screens everywhere. And
looking at a screen,
all geared up and searching for footage of me, catching a guitar that Springsteen had thrown across the stage in front of 100,000 people at Jazz Fest.
Oh yeah, okay.
And to for it all to just
come
full circle, to go from like where it went from like that string breaking and seeing that and that movement to like, all of a sudden realizing my whole voyage and all this stuff that I'd worked really hard at and put, a lot of effort into, and through the help of, the vehicle of all kinds of different people and support. And, here I was like, boom, all of a sudden it was like one hand and, full speed with another guitar on me, catching a toss from the boss, as I call it. So
the toss from the boss of the guitar, the boss's guitar.
Well,
you have that footage. You found that footage.
I do, and we'll pull it up a little bit later.
Okay, cool, awesome.
Yeah, I do have that footage. It's not the guitar now. He doesn't.
Oh, okay.
It's rare that he throws the guitar.
Okay, gotcha.
It's been many moons since I've worked. That can't. But dude, yeah, it was one of those moments where I was like, right then, I was like, okay. Wow, it's like, and then the coolest thing about it all was, literally, it's like the footage I found, and I have this little clip that I made was just somebody on YouTube, the world of YouTube, someone captured that moment just enough so I could get it to then capture it and then relive it and go, wow, man, that was super cool. Like, because it was such a blur. Like,
so you started, so here you are in your town as a kid. And then 20, 30 years later, you're back in your hometown, kind of like flashing back in your life. Well, what just happened? And you find like one of the most epic moments of all of that on YouTube. And you're wow.
It was part of like, there was a point several years ago when I kind of made the conscious decision to ultimately like come off the road, as they say, because that's when I kind of like redirected and I went into, which I kind of, I've been so many things that I've done. Sorry, let me get up here. Maybe you can hear me a little bit better, but in the tech world. So I got injured back in 2012, had to get surgery, came off the road, went back on the road, worked for a bit, and then just kept hearing the doctor going, oh man, look, and you stay out there, you end up hurt like you were before, blah, blah, blah. It's like, okay, and then, I had a family member that was sick. So it was time to, come home and take a break for a bit. So yeah, it was like right at that point, I realized I needed to come off the road. I went, and then I changed and I got into integration, which was a whole nother, thing, which was like, which I ended up working on, for instance, 2 summers ago, we installed the TV studios at Facebook in New York. They have a, whole brand new complex. We put a 30 million, their TV studio facility, a big event room, and basically like Google and Facebook are having this thing where they were building the same kind of facilities, and I was subcontracting through a friend of mine, Zane, Marshall, that we all know kind of mutually as sound guys in the industry here, and he has a company, and a bunch of us were bouncing around, and yes, it was like a whole other thing. But so I kind of lost myself here. I was going with that, but I guess it was like, I made the choice to come off the road after getting back on the road, and then I found that, and then it was like, I guess I got to that point after all that, and I found myself on the internet finding a clip, and that's when it was like, wow, man, that all happened. So, and it's still like, it's still very, very hard to compute all of it. I mean, there's so much. We'll try to cover a bunch of different things.
Yeah, let's go back to your beginnings then. So you started as one day you got to choose.
Disclaimer. I try not to, I've had people ask me before to do things like this, and it's because it's you, Double, because you're such a good friend, and we've toured together, we've lived on a bus together, we've lived in a house together, and you get it, you get me, and I've had enough time to process a bit of it to where you know what, I'm cool, it's cool, I'm cool, let's do this. So I wanted, before we talk about any of all this, it was like, because I don't want it to seem like, I always felt like, oh man, I've done so much stuff, and then talking about people, man,
Anyway. This is why I'm doing this, because I know most of the people that I know that do this for a living, that have worked with some of the biggest stars around, are very humble and don't talk about it for that reason. So my whole reasoning behind Text to the Stars is to acknowledge that behind the scenes, behind all of these people that we look up to, there are people also worth looking up to that we can learn a lot from. And I think just hearing your story of going from a kid that had a moment where you didn't expect it to happen, and then you were about the time you were first starting to play guitar, you watched somebody break a string, and they had you change a string for them.
It was more of, he changed the string, but it's that, man. It's like, it's an amazing, I guess the whole thing, I hope in the end of all this, after the talk and everything, is what people get out of my my journey and what, what I've been able to accomplish through this is just the power of music and like,
right.
And this industry that's been completely forgotten about. I don't want to get into any of that beyond the fact that there's a lot of folks at home that make, big industry happen. And I'm one of those guys. And and for all those out there, I hope everyone's doing all right. And, I hope to see you back out there at some point, Anyway, beyond that, let's, so yeah, where do we start? Do we go back to the Wild Peacock or what?
Well, so the Wild Peacock, you see a guy break a string, you're a guitarist, and you move on. You start playing in bands. Then after that, you like the guitar. You like all of a sudden the idea of helping somebody else as well. And these two worlds kind of met for you as you're a musician. And so you started playing out pretty young. You were gigging 15-ish.
Yeah. I again in that initial teenage years where I had gotten the guitar, and then I kind of morphed from a couple different groups of friends. I was just one of those guys that had friends all over the place, and but I had a buddy Nick from high school and a couple other guys, Josh, and we had a band and we started gigging out, and landed enough, had enough songs together to do a couple things. Like one funny moment was like the first time we realized like we really kind of weren't very good was Steve Wright had, Steve Wright being the guy who he is at Right Way Studio. He's always been
incredible.
Way above everybody. And I was fortunate enough to get a chance to record in one of his early basement studios where Les Lentz had given, or however the process worked out. He had Les's 16-track recorder. And that moment, was another kind of a sound guy moment for me where I wasn't a sound guy at that point, but it was a moment where we recorded and we're sitting back there for the playback. Sorry if I should be getting closer to this microphone. Bad sound etiquette by sound guy. Sorry. I'm sitting, we pull up over the soundboard and they play back, and I'm just like, oh my God, I'm awful. The band's awful. This is horrible. But anyway.
So you're listening to your own bands thinking like, oh my God, we're not good.
Yeah. But it was all real. Like the whole thing was just one of my first real moments of like the soundboard, the studio process, being, the whole thing. We're in a band, totally, my teenage years.
Overwhelming moment when you see all that.
The chorus in me, I'm like, then it's like, wah, wah. but we practiced enough to get out to some gigs, and one in particular was the one where the transitional moment for me into actual, which led me into the sound field and all the different things, was the gig at the Rev. Man, we opened up for a band called Yo Bolson, and they were super tight. We were okay, but whatever. But that was the night where I met the sound guy that changed my whole life. And I wish I could find that guy now to thank him.
Right.
Because in the end, that night really defined a lot for me, and I didn't realize it at that time. And it was simply, here I am, one of my first moments on a stage, totally out of the element. As a musician, you leave the basement, you get down to the real world, and you're like, I got a gig, and your whole time you're like, oh, and then the moment you plug your guitar and you get set up and you're scrambling around as the opening act, and you get this grumpy big dude, look kind of like me, going, hey, don't put that on, don't stop,
angry sound guy. Oh.
The quintessential angry sound guy. And it just made it what should have been a really cool experience for me, just a horrible, but I guess it was a good learning experience, because I walked away from that gig just going, oh man, F that guy. I'm going to learn how to do his job.
I'm never going to be that guy. That's the learning moment. That is something that can make you want to just be better, is when you see somebody that you want to be doing something like that and you go, hold on, I know that's not the way to do it.
But here's the truth in that, though. There's both the rub, like, yeah, he was being a jerk. He's being that guy, because I understand 6 nights a week you're looking at all the young guys coming through. It's like you're just riding faders and you're like totally preoccupied with something else. And here I am, I'm like, me. And the truth is he understands one thing. He's like, hey man, you guys need to go home and practice, because that translation as a musician, like that's where it really, and a guy that nailed it early on and understood all this as a guitar player in town, Brian Ewald, was the guy that his guitar, always his tone, the translation of that. And that's the thing of like going from the basement to that stage, and like you get up there and all of a sudden you plug in, it's set the same way it was in the basement when you were a rock star, for rehearsal for however many weeks leading up to that gig. And then all of a sudden it's like, everything, you lose everything and your tone's thin. But a lot of it too is just, you're young, you're not, you're not as good as you think you are. And so, yeah, sorry, that was a very defined,
so
that was very,
this guy upset you to the point of saying, I want to make a change in a certain way. And then, so this kind of is the start of your transition from being a musician to a sound guy. You moved to mix a band then for a while, a regional band, Mama Jamma, right?
well, see what it was is, yeah, that's where you become. And that's, if you really get an understanding and the real breakdown of music, live music in particular, it's like the sound guy, the front of house guy is the fifth member of the band. He's the other, the Beatles or the guy, or wherever that guy is. If nowadays they got him tucked up under the rafters over behind the hot dog stand because everything goes,
right. Yeah.
But yeah, I got a gig with them. That was an interesting thing, because that process was kind of like right at that same time in my life. I got out of high school, and I was working for a family restaurant, running all over the place. In this band that I had with a couple buddies, amazing guys, actually. I'm kidding. I mean, Todd Krusberg, he's one of the most phenomenal guitar players I've ever met, and Ken Cron, amazing drummer, and a guy named Terry Sample, cool dude. Terry, he was a cool bass player, and we had a band. I guess this is another defining. I think I should add this in, because that band, right? I guess mid Mama Jamma, all that post high school, that also, like that moment, like after the first gig a couple years before, and I was like, I'm learning to do the sound thing. And then I kind of like actually lost interest a bit. And then I got serious again because of the Blues Jam. This is a very key moment that we didn't talk about that I wanted to add in, and how I met Todd and how I went on. Anyway, Acme Bar and Grill had a Blues Jam at that period of time when I put this band together. And the house band was Tim Beery and John Preverty and Dean Rosenthal, the guy, the main blues dude in town, was the dude. And he had Preverty and Tim behind him. And it was just this amazing, like this little teeny, the standard blues bar thing on Main Street in Annapolis, Maryland. But I mean, we had Danny Gatton's rhythm section, and it was an open jam at the end of the night. So like as a guitar player, musician, just in like life lesson, this place, like Roy Dunshee, if he ever gets to see this, they called him Floyd LaTruth. He played sat in with the house band. But yeah, that was a moment where, and I'll get to the whole thing with meeting Todd and John, and how John plays in and went on to do all these other things with us too, is, that took me from there to then Todd produced this record for us at the same time. And then I was just so lucky I didn't realize at the time to be around those guys. And then it led into the Mama Jamma thing. So it's the same, all this, I'm this band, I'm doing this, I'm recording. But yeah, the Mama Jamma thing, I took the gig as as one roadie of two roadies, and there was a sound guy.
And so you started having to do multiple things within that situation already. So you're
right. And this is where the whole, like, one of the characteristic lines in music is like, so several months into being just a crew guy, and I'd been in this band, and I'd learned, and I kind of told you, like, leading up to that point in my life where I wasn't really a sound dude, but I had learned enough. I was more of like guitar player, songwriter, that was still just trying to learn it. And then I took the gig with Mama Jamma, and it was a couple months later. At one point, the leader of the band calls me one morning, all frantic, and he's like, "Hey man, the dude, blah, blah, it's a guy we had run sound at the time. Basically couldn't make the gig," and he was all mad. He's like, "Can you do it?" And I was like, here's the moment for all the musicians and people out there. It's like the fake it till you make it kind of thing.
Fake it till you make it. Yep. Oh yeah.
Boy, this was that.
Let them see you sweat.
Yeah. And I was like, oh yeah. And we're talking about, this was a 7-piece world beat reggae band that was maxing out at the time, a 24/4 Mackie mixer. Just a whole mic box full of beat up 57s, 58s, nice, decent kick drum mic, just everything underpowered. The amp rack looked like a Christmas tree every time the kick drum hit it, kind of thing. But amazing life lesson. And then and that's was part of the process from, I kind of agreed to do it because that moment when he asked me, I went back to that, like, sound guy, years before. And I was like, okay. And I agreed to do it. And then I learned it. And then it became, this second nature kind of thing. And then from there, a mutual sound guy that was kind of the guy that brought me into that band, and rest in peace, Bill Plummer. He was a local engineer, amazing guy. He was the kind of guy that later in the story we'll get into, like the TV broadcast stuff I did. But, Bill was a guy that kind of brought me in the fold of that. in a sense, indirectly. And then through that, after me in our relationship in that, a couple years in the Mamma Jamma thing, Bill was a regular up as one of the A1s at BET for a lot of the, they had a bunch of networks at the time, like Jazz Central was one of the, BET on Jazz. So spent a bunch of time, lucked out, and got all this different freelance work at first because of Bill's recommendation. Doing, like 6 or 7 years of BET on Jazz shoots, Bet on Jazz, which are just, you had everyone, Herbie Hancock, you name it, who it was in the jazz world, they came through it. And that was where the real audio education really came into play, because I found myself landing the gig. Bill's like, come on up here, we got this thing, we're gonna, they've purchased equipment and we're gonna install this sound system. And just, to me, again, it was the real serious fake it till you
another transition, that you got thrown into, that you have to take all your tools out and say, okay, these tools I got, and I gotta add some new ones to the arsenal. Let's make it today. Yeah.
Check this situation out. So I'm
this is at BET TV at this point.
Yeah, they're the facility there in DC, right off of Washington. You come in right on the right there. You always seen forever that big building. Well, that's what they call networks operations. And then they bought. There's a big compound, and on that compound they bought an old meat packing warehouse or whatever it was, and it's just this massive, huge open facility that they, put all just soundproofed and curtained it, and it was a thing that. So this was my first gig, was to basically show up, and what I'm telling you, man, it was one of the most, intimidating things ever in my life. I walked in this building, it was that big warehouse, and it was literally empty, like an airplane hangar. And there's just a circle of chairs, and there was this massive pile of boxes. And I'm just like, oh boy. I sit down, and then I meet all these, these different characters come in, and, just these different road dog sound guys, and just basically the crew of guys that they had called together to come and assemble this, basically what was going to be a powered Myers rig in this big warehouse with a Paragon at front of the house and a Paragon 2 at monitors. And then outside there's a mobile truck with an SSL on one side of it. And, the other side was full video cameras. And it's how they shot BET on Jazz, and all that stuff was with that truck before. And they'd outsource audio gear. Well, they purchased this PA, and I was that was my first real integration, was we went in at 23. I was on the crew of guys that put that in. And then that gave me, I ended up starting as, just a simple stage tech and patch guy. I went from that to then monitor guy. And then I was front of house guy. And then I was babysitting, the rack of APIs, tape op guy. And then I worked my way into the truck as a A2 on the SSL. And then, I got to do some, very minimal, small, just remix on air, push and fader stuff there. But still, at that point in my life, I was like, wowzers, So, and then right about that time is all, I a year or two there, got me through that. At the beginning, I guess the like second year mark is where Jimmy's Chicken Shack, all that kind of part of it rolled into play too. And then there was a whole other so then all of a sudden I became tour manager, sound guy, camp counselor for the Chicken Shack.
So you've got guitarists, then at the age of 23, you've got guitar under your belt. You've changed strings out a billion times on stage for other people. Even as a young kid, you've mixed live shows, and now you've installed, and you're starting to work on broadcast studio stuff that's actually nationwide. So your circles are getting bigger and bigger as you're going.
Yeah.
We have a question from Juliet. So Juliet, we're going to get to that question here in just a couple minutes. He's working.
Oh, see, I didn't. Sorry, I wasn't. I've got so many screens and stuff. It's hard in case. There we are, right there.
Yep. So that's us there in the middle. And so as you move through the studio world, and then now you're saying you end up back out in the live world, and you're mixing. So this is where you come into my world, and you are not only mixing us, but you're also changing strings for Jimmy's Chicken Shack and doing things like that. After our time together, that's where I feel like you hit a stride with a certain amount of these stars and these.
Oh yeah, that's it. Yeah, so from So,
let's talk about your direct work with some of those people, and like she's saying, some of the wild stuff now that you've seen, not just what kind of led you down this path now, but like where now that you're really on this path and just being at a nationwide TV studio within that short amount of time. I know what you're humble, and you, like you said from the beginning, you don't like to toot your own horn, but that's a pretty big step, especially at that age for me, man. I'm working at a bar and I'm playing in bands. I would have been the last thing. I would have looked very much.
I was doing both. I was still like, I'm just driven, man. I just work. Like I said,
well, that's what it takes.
My father's a mason. It's like I just grew up. In the middle of that, it was like I was doing sound tour management. Picking up as many freelance shifts as a broadcast engineer as I could. I had PAs all over the place in little clubs and places. And that was another part of the thing is the Ram's Head thing was like, that was another huge live thing. And that's kind of like the connection with the Bruce thing where I guess we go there. It's like how, and then from like right there was like, I basically was living in a room. I was renting a room from Jimmy downtown at his place. Noel White was renting the other room. We're on the second floor and we shared an office. And one day, I'll never forget, Noel was sitting there and he got a call and he looked over. He's like, "Hey man, this guy Nils Lofgren called." And it wasn't, he didn't call. Brian called him and said, and he said, "Hey man, Brian called and said this guy Nils Lofgren's looking for a tour manager, guitar tech, blah, blah, blah." And I was like, cool. And so what we did was he gave him a call. Next thing you know, it was like, here we are. We're having a meeting in Nils's living room. We're like, wow, man, this is cool. Nils Lofgren, East Street Band. And then, we hit it off and and essentially what he was looking for was a tour manager, front of house, a crew for his band. He has
a side band when Bruce is.
Well, it's not a side band. It's his band.
His band, right.
He's got, a gaggle of records and, I ended up doing some records for him and stuff down the road, but yeah. So
here you are.
He needed basically what he needed for him. He needed exactly what we had done for Jimmy. He needed a multi-purpose front of house guy, tour guy, collect the money, look after everybody. And then they needed someone to sling some guitars. And at one point with the full band, we had a drum tech. So that's enter Noel taking care of Tim Beery, Jeremy Reichwein came out, took care of Nils, and I was actually the tour manager and front of house guy. So 2 months of that, we came home. One day I was laying on the couch. Nils's manager calls me. He's like, "Hey man, you did a great job. He likes you. Do you want to go and do a tour with Springsteen?" And I just kind of like at the time, man, listen, I was in my early 20s and a lot of Jägermeister late nights and he caught me on a very hungover, just out of it morning, and it didn't register what he had said. I was like, give Jeremy a call, man. You want a guitar tech? I'm like, I'd already, like you said, I'm now knowing we've walked through all the different things I've already kind of accomplished and mastered. It was like, I wasn't looking to be a guitar tech. I realized that like after the sound thing really became my instrument, and I really started like diving into that. So it was like, I wasn't at that moment, I had zero. I was doing broadcast TV stuff and I was like looking to get on tour as a sound guy, mixing stadiums and arenas. And next thing you know, we do this gig, I get a call, and then I find myself driving up to Asbury Park. And then that's where, that's where it really like with the big, from all the stuff, my all that hard work and all those different experiences led up to that moment where we got the call. We went out and did a couple, me and Noel and all the local guys, which Noel now works for, he's been with Sting forever. I mean, it's amazing the amount of Annapolis, man, the folks that have come out of there and the bands and shit.
So there you are in Annapolis a number of years later, and you find this footage of yourself with Bruce Springsteen doing.
Yeah.
Do you have what? Can we look at a couple of clips? Let's look at some tour pics now. Let's move into what it was. What it was like for you all of a sudden.
Let me pull up this thing I created. It was a.
You got a slideshow or something?
Well, it's kind of like a slideshow. I can stop. Like I can give give people an idea of. Let's see where that goes.
Yeah, if you send it up, I can pop it into the stream here. And then I really would like to hit Juliet's question too, because now we're in your instrument zone again. You're out of just regular old guitar, and if you're with the E Street Band and you all
right. Well, you know what? I got to talk to. I got a good one we can hear. So you want me to go? How do you want me to do? Share screen, or should I just switch and just do it from my end?
If you switch and do it from your end, if that's easier for you, that's fine. And then I'll just put you in like this. Here we go.
I'm sorry.
Well, there's the puppies. Okay. That's a big gerbil.
You able to watch
Or
it?
those are
If
some
the dogs even knew. Okay, so we'll talk here. What I've got here is this is the footage that I found on the internet, and I've kind of slowed it down, but I'll kind of set it up because it happens fast, and if it could look like just jumbled YouTube footage to most people, which it really just is, and really it doesn't matter. But
this is okay. So this is New Orleans Jazz Festival.
New Orleans Jazz Festival. So what's happened here is over here you got little Steven, and he's actually waving no to Bruce. Bruce is behind this hand, and he's looking for his guitar tech. And what happened is the Jazz Fest, we were set up completely different than we normally would. And Kevin, Bruce's guy, was completely, his sight lines were gone. He was having a horrible day like everyone because it was hot. It's a festival. You are in the industry.
Bruce's guitar tech, you're saying?
Bruce's guitar tech. Yep. And there's a for years, there's a shtick every night where during Dance in the Dark near the end of the night, one of the things is Bruce turns around and he catches eyes with Kevin and he just wings his Telecaster and lets it go. He's like, here, you know what? Let me switch back while I'm talking about this so I can set. So it's not. So yeah. So he wings. He just lets his guitar go and
flies it through the air.
Kevin catches it. Bruce turns around and then he goes down and does his Dance in the Dark thing, kind of like the video where Courtney Cox got up and she got up and did some dancing and the original thing. So it's kind of a shtick. So anyway, Jazz Fest. Kevin can't see. Little Steven's over there. Let me hit some more orange here. I got
citrusy, so citrusy, dude.
Oh, so good. So I'll go back here. So little Steven's over here going no, and Bruce is like, "Where's Kevin?" And Max over here. So anyway, over here to the left is I'm kind of right off the stage, and I can see this out of my peripheral. And I'm tuning the guitar, and all of a sudden I made this judgment call. I'm like, I'm going for it. I unplugged my guitar, kept it on, went running, kind of turned right, and as I came around Charlie's riser, I caught eyes with Bruce, and I'll just play it here. Caught eyes with Bruce. He kind of chuckled, and he just let it go. So here we go. Right there. So stop. You look over. There's me coming. And he's backing it up.
You in the back, in front of the drummer, right there, with the guitar in your hand. So you have a guitar in your hand already.
Yeah. I'm right there. I was running full speed, guitar on. There's his guitar there. Steve's like, oh, no way. Max is like, holy shit, what's going to happen here? See, Kevin would be way over here, but again, there was just so much going on.
He couldn't see what was happening. So
anyway, so finally he caught eyes. I ran out, and then, God, I can't believe I found this footage. So then I'll let it go. Oh, it goes up like that, and got it.
One hand with the guitar,
and he just
boss. Look at the boss. He's like that's Boomer.
Let's go back here. Like, so here we go. Yeah, one hand up like that, and he's good to go. Yeah, dude.
Yeah.
So that
was just a moment for you.
Talk about moments, man. Sheesh. So let me see. Let me go back here. I have this other one would be good because it's kind of like a slideshow, and we can talk about it'll kind of correlate with some of the where'd it go.
So you were strictly guitar tech. Getting back to Juliet's question, you were strictly guitar tech on this tour, right? You didn't have to backline for
no. I was hired to take care of one dude. As part of a backline crew, we all had to load the trucks and all that stuff. But
you did eventually get into the world. We'll get to some of your other tours, but you did see some unique stuff in time, didn't you?
Oh, like I got to go to. Oh, like what? I'm sorry. Say that again.
As far as instruments, getting back to that, the question that Juliet.
The guy I worked for, I had at any given time during a show, I had about 50 instruments ready to go. Everything from 6-string, 12-string, lap steel, dobro, pedal steel, you name it, Nils played it. I mean, that was his gig. He was the guy that played everything. So I'm gonna, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna get us to a picture of side stage here. So there it is. So this will give you an idea here. If you go over here to the right, starting. So in this, or let's go back to the Fender world behind me, and I have his number one there. That's the 61 Strat, and then there was another 60 Strat, which is like the backup to that, and then there was another 60 Strat, which was tuned a little different with a 3rd fret capo, and then there was, it was just Jasmine. It was just gaggle. I had 3 vaults this is during for show. I had 3 vaults set up right there. I had a pedal steel on stage going through a pedal steel. I had a pedal steel underneath for rehearsals and backup. It was a whole, a switching system with, pedals on stage, double amps.
So you're switching for him as well as tuning, or was
I had the ability, but he still wanted the where'd I go? Where'd that picture go? He still wanted the ability to have all the functions up there. So it was just, everything was redundancy. Let me come back to you.
Real quick, looks like Mike is asking, so he's talking about like a guitar setup question. If the neck has a convex bow, I'm guessing if he's asking about the strings being too tight, you probably had to run into that kind of a thing pretty regularly. Did you have to tune guitars, like actually grab them and adjust necks and stuff like that live on?
I'll give you one. Yeah, I'll give you a crazy one.
Mike, to get to your question real quick, Mike, that yes, if you've got it convex and it's too, and your truss rod is too tight, basically a truss rod is acting against the strings. So if the strings are way off the fretboard, the strings are pulling too much, and you're going to have to tighten up that truss rod. And when you tighten it up too much, it gets real close to the fretboard. Yeah. So to cover that question while Boomer was looking for something here.
Funny thing is honestly, Double's a better guitar tech than I am.
Oh, please.
There's a thing you understand, like all guitar techs and different. But out there, what you have to, like, this gig was like, you had to be, there's a tech side of it, but there was like, you had to be a player. Like,
right. So there's a whole other layer to it when you're at this level. Yeah.
You're slinging 50 instruments. And and you're trying to get, and this is the really trippy thing is for the audio guys out there. It's like, I had an electric frequency and an acoustic frequency, and that was it. And I had to get all that. I had to have all that stuff on belt packs like that.
In a second.
So there was no
overlap of one frequency interacting with another. If one guitar was on, the other one's
just meaning off. Like I had, you understand you're a guitar player, you understand the outputs of instruments are all different, and getting them all balanced on belt packs and then just hit one frequency. Yep.
It can be mayhem in a situation like that. Yep.
Believe me, it was if the proverbial hot potato, I was playing hot potato, man. It was crazy.
And then you turn around and still grab a guitar with a guitar in your hand. Grab Bruce's Telly by one hand. That's I love that.
Yeah, that was one of the, like I said. So that was like, if we talk about that was like a moment there. Like after that happened, and then finding it and seeing that, it's just like, holy cow, man! All that craziness happened. It was like,
speaking of guitar techs, we got a former guitar tech in the house here that worked for Shure doing wireless stuff. So. He probably feels your pain there with having to battle all the frequencies.
Man,
yeah. That's something that we on at MSI have to deal with too. The frequency bandwidth is just insane. Yeah, and that's what Boomer, Mike, you kind of missed Boomer talking about setting up the BET entertainment system earlier, I think. But he has done everything from the setting up an install to playing on stage to teching for these guys. Was there ever a moment when you were with Bruce or even with Toto? So you know
what? I think I may have to relaunch. Am I?
Yeah, you're getting a little laggy.
A little laggy.
Yeah, go ahead.
Red hot second here. We can still talk though. We're still friends.
Yeah. We can chat for a second, and everybody can see my room while you relaunch. But so you basically kind of took the whole jack of trades, master of none, like you were just saying. I'm not necessarily a better guitar tech than anybody. It's just we all spend time doing this stuff. And I think what happens is the more you also teach somebody, the more you show other people how to do stuff, the more you learn. And that's how we kind of build these circles and build these tools. So looks like you popped in and then you popped back out. Mike's asking more here. So it looks like your problem is you bought a guitar and you think the truss rod is a little tight. But when you depress the fret on the 12th and the first there's Mike, check out Philip McKnight. He has a lot of really good setup videos, and setting the intonation and things like that is one thing. And there's actually a specific order that you have to go through when you're doing guitar tech setup. You don't want to go out of order because otherwise you just keep chasing your tail and chasing your tail. So I highly recommend, Mike, to you that you find Philip Ignite, and he has a whole series on specifically those kind of setup questions, which is a really good question. And because if Boomer and I could sit here and talk forever and ever and ever, as we all definitely are, he and I know for sure. But I do want to make sure people are seeing some of this cool stuff that you've done. So let me know when you have another. When you
okay. I didn't realize. Yeah, I'm back here. So
yep. Okay. Cool.
Yeah. What else do we got here? What is this movie?
So you went, just so I know, you went from Springsteen.
Toto. Yeah, here's a Toto. Like we went Toto. So what happened? Basically,
you segued into Toto, right? Or was there some time between Springsteen and Toto?
Actually, let me walk you through the timeline, really, of like all the bands, and then.
Okay, yeah, let's do that. There's a number of names.
I did a decade with Springsteen. I probably did almost 500 shows. But I got hurt and had to have back surgery. I came off the road. I got better, and I didn't start back with Toto. I through a mutual friend ended up out on the road with Bob Seger as a actual horn tech, which post injury it was easier way to ease back in. It was a much. I wasn't slinging 50 guitars, it was like a slinging horns. It was a much more laid back thing. It was just a whole different show. Arenas, not stadiums, not Europe, just real straightforward. So yeah, did Seger, and then through Seger, I'm through one of the guys I met. Through him, he hooked me up, and this is how the Lukather thing and Toto, and ultimately there was back in there too. But yeah, he hooked me up with Luke, and right at the end of one Seger tour, Luke's manager called me and said, "Hey, look, we're doing this European, or which one was it? It was a European run. Was the first tour we did? Whatever the first, I've done so many tours.
It's all right.
Whatever the first Toto tour was, I want to say it was overseas. Yeah. So anyway, I said, sure, no problem. Boom. That's how the industry works. It's like you're only as good as your next gig. That gig was over. I'm like, I'm back on my feet. Let's go. And also, heck yeah. I mean, as a guitar player, I'm, Steve Lukather, come on, sure. And so there was a bonus in that thing, and I didn't realize it. And they kind of set me up because they knew, they were smart. The businessman was smart when he was negotiating. And me at the time, I wasn't smart as he was, because he goes, yeah, I need to take care of Luke. And oh yeah. And then, and we just need to set up the bass rig. And I'm like, I know, how that whole once is a favorite gig. I'm like, whatever, I'm going to be working with Luke. I don't care, man. This is, this is the dude, as a guitar player. I'm like, honestly, I would have done it for free for the first couple months. Like, hey, just, guitar lessons. Show up to LA, or, I meet Luke. I get the whole, Luke has his stuff over at this cartage place where like Mike Landau and all these, they all have lockers together. It was another nostalgic moment, but Mike, was tasked with getting all his gear over to the rehearsal place, set up the bass rig for the bass player, and then the band starts trickling in the first day, and then the bass player shows up, and it just happened to be Nathan East. I'm like, oh, no wonder they didn't say anything to me.
Nathan East played with Sting.
Really? He's Clapton's for 30 years.
Oh, Clapton, right? Okay, right.
And Bob James for play, and Nate in his own right has a bunch of records, and just amazing dude. So it was like, and honestly, as naive as I was when he first walked in, it still didn't register. It was more of because I'd seen him so much on the jazz gigs that it was registering as the jazz dude. It was Nate, the jazz guy. And then after the first day, I was like, oh my gosh, man, I'm taking care of Luke and Nathan East. And it was one of the funnest, because I got a clip queued up here of these guys. So that band, talk about insanity. It was like Luke, Nathan on bass for this tour. David Page was there, Steve Picaro, whole background group of Brown House singers. Simon Phillip on drums. I mean, just forget about it. It doesn't.
So as a musician, it was one of those moments where you're a technician and you're almost thinking to yourself, boy, wouldn't it be great to be a musician? Just on stage here, even just to be standing there doing what you're doing was great. But did you look at them and go, oh God, I'd love to have an instrument right now and just feel that with them?
No, I think this
Yeah.
what I'm going to show you here is I was more like standing there like I'm not freaking worthy. Okay.
Okay.
The audio is camera audio, so and it's heavy on the drums, but you get the point. I'll switch over to it real quick, but it's basically we're live at this big festival or wherever, somewhere in Europe, and there's a breakdown in the middle of the night where Nate, Luke, and Simon they do this breakdown, and it's just bad to the bone. So let's see. Hopefully, the audio translates here.
All right. Yep. I got my fingers on the trigger just in case it gets too weird.
Ready?
Yep. Go for it. What to tell on this? And is that Zeppelin? Were they just jamming a Zeppelin riff right there?
It's like this mashup, man. It's just,
oh my gosh.
Simon tries to, he takes it out. And then there'll be a crowd shot right at the end.
Hey, Cabbage is here. What's up, buddy?
So yeah, dude, every night. So that gives you an idea. I mean, there's the coolest thing, which I don't have. You can go on YouTube and dig it up for anybody that that it's a Toto fan. But I was on the 35th anniversary tour, and essentially, let me come back to you.
Yeah, I'm just seeing your computer screen.
Oh yeah, it's because I keep the desktop gray.
I do see another question here from Mike, but Mike, I'm going to get to that question here in a little bit because Boomer might actually have a good opinion on this question right here because you sit around and you jam. Everybody that's watching, if you got a minute and you're a YouTuber, check out Boomer's channel after this. I left a link in the description. He has a YouTube channel. He does some performances and stuff, but that's kind of
that's an easy one. I mean, go ahead.
You loop? You use software in Loop or anything like that?
No. I mean, the Looper Boom is I just use a looper pedal, and Looper Boom 2 is kind of just more of a overall like I anyone that knows me, I'm just like this repeat. It's like I'm like this cycle of things, and it just kind of was a catchy thing. And I was building a website, and then it was all the same thing. I do a solo thing and I'm going to start coming up here because I was playing with a band for a while before COVID hit called Black Dog Alley. And a couple of those guys, and I'm going to try to start one by one, getting back with guys and doing some duo, trio things, all to some of my loops and stuff. And one of the things I was telling you is like we should get together and do, I can, it's later. I could take us the show. We could end the show with me playing to a loop. I have it all set up.
So you use a looper when you do your own thing after like just messing around. But have you ever looped with the trio like that? Anything like that?
My plan coming up here is just I have pre-built loops that both of us can play to. Essentially, building. But
like in a live situation, have you ever tried to? That's not easy. That's a weird little thing.
Well, that's the thing. I guess we didn't talk about is I didn't play live for a long time.
Right.
And my buddy
because you were just so focused on all of this. So
I like I said it. Back to Steve Wright. He said it. He nailed it. When I started doing sound. He's like, "You'll never play guitar again." Steve's an amazing guitar player. He's incredible guitar. That was another band in the whole. I forgot about Geppetto. We didn't talk about that, but in that whole era, like Steve's, So he said he's like, "Don't you'll never play again," and I didn't for I'm 40. I'll be 47 this year. And it wasn't until last year when, part of what I always kind of, I guess, part of the story, like people don't get to, is early on the frustration of that early sound guy and writing songs. And then I guess the importance was I didn't get to with Todd and them was I went through that band lasted only about a year, and Todd recorded an amazing demo that you can go to on my, www.loopaboom.com. I have a bunch of those tunes you can download for free that we did. It was all live. I did it on a Tascam 243 like rack mounted thing, bounced back and forth, like maybe a total of 10 tracks, and we mastered it on the old DAT machine through a TC electronics thing. And still this day sounds amazing, but that, unfortunately, that process all went down, and we did look at me, I'm like, we did a bunch of gigs, and I guess one of the moments where I realized that I needed to go and figure out a way to get in the back door, because I was a big heavy set dude. I wasn't like just gonna, like, a record label or just the music industry wasn't gonna embrace me in the format I was in at that point. And I wouldn't get out. We booked a bunch of shows, and we had some steam, and we found this booking agency. And unfortunately, like, they just didn't get like what we were doing, like the Taxi Melt thing, and kind of like leading up to, I'll get to coming back playing 20 years later, this band is the same vibe that we were doing in Taxi Melt. But back then, this booking agent tried to book us at a show, at a club. I got you this great gig, and it's going to be, great money, and it's, 2 nights, same place, blah, 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 and Pasadena or somewhere. And I'm like, all right, cool. And we load in, and it turns out, and I didn't know this until after, like, we were just about to play our last song of our first set, and there's like nobody there. And wow, that was weird. I moved my ears and things changed. I hear this, play some Madonna. And I was like, it was just like that moment when I looked over the soundboard and I deflated, and I was like, and that sounds like, all right, band. And I just basically, in my head, the band was done, and we've ultimately did. I just, all the engineering thing and everything took total priority, and that became the vehicle. And then focus. Yeah. So okay. So back to where we were. Where were we?
Oh, hey, I know what I want to ask you. I want you, we could get back to, you had some Bob Seger time. And now you worked with the sax player that played some amazing stuff. And he had some incredible instruments too. Like, didn't you have to take care of some special stuff for him?
Oh yeah. I have this clip. Let me see if this is it. Okay.
Tim Collins.
Let me find this other clip, because I think this one clip was the one that was kind of acting wonky.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for hanging out, man. Tim Collins says, "Boomer, great to see you, man. Glad to see you."
Buddy. I saw him up here on this last time, and I meant to say, hey, Tim's a great guy. I remember having conversations with him. I was, you guys over at MSI are great. Doubled. You took me in like you always do, like everybody, and I was in trying to figure, in that, like, what do I do? Do I go back out on the road? And I got on the road. So here we go, though. Let's back to the good times here.
Look at that thing. Oh my God.
So not only that, but right here to the left, we called it the horn sled. That's $100,000 in horns right there. And the heaters, they heated them up. And yeah, man, he was all about.
You had heaters that had to keep the horns warm?
If you look right there, you see that little white thing. Yeah, a little Home Depot, little ceramic. We prop them up. These big cold arenas, man. He's like,
wow.
They keep them. He had his show down. I mean, all the way down to, like, Alto was one of a kind. Rest in peace, dude.
That thing's as big as he is. That's that. So this was his name, Alto.
Alto Reed.
What a name for a horn player, right? Alto.
Original dude. Original. They called him the Cover Boys in the band. And one of the coolest things. I don't know if it's cool. It's just rock and roll history or whatever. And how these. I've worked for some real characters. We're all people out there are characters, and one of Alto's shticks was I had to set his dressing room up, and what I had to do was set an iron and wax out and wax his boots for him, and I just never kind of got it at first, and finally, like, bro, what? He says, man, this is what James Brown did, all right? I'm like, what? He says, you see how I slide across that stage? I said, yeah.
So you waxed the bottom of his boots?
Yeah, he wore these leather boots. It was part of his dig. So here, he was about moves. Took this move out. We did. The reason I got the gig is he needed a guy to do like I did guitar changes. He needed a horn guy. We would make changes here. All right, let me go back. It's so missed the move. Here's the move.
Bring that audio down just a little bit on the player. Oh, yeah, I got
you. Does that get jumpy?
Yeah, I got a little jumpy. Go ahead and back it up.
Yeah, I think this is the one I was telling you. I think we got a couple clips. The frame rates are different or something. You get the point.
You applied the wax to those boots so that he could do those kind of moves, and that was well. As a horn player, you take your moments, and I mean, he had some epic lines in those songs. That
Oh yeah, I'll pull that up for you.
Oh God, there's that one. What's the song? Turn the Page, right? With the horn. Oh God, I mean, when I hear that, it.
Sorry, let me make sure. Am I still there in sync, or did you lose me?
Oh no, you're here. You're here. I think you're in sync. Yeah, you're still in good.
All right. Well, how are the gerbils? Okay,
dogs are chilling.
The dogs, look at them. They're just like they're not impressed. That's actually
Mike says, "Are we using Mac or PC?" We're both PC guys here. Yeah.
Oh no, I'm Mac guy.
I mean, Mac guys. I'm sorry. We're both. I just made the switch from PC, and that's why I still have it in my head. Yeah, I'm using the Mac now too, and I want to upgrade. Yeah. I really like it. It's nice having everything integrated like this. So, but okay, so he had multiple instruments then too, right? He had the horn.
Yeah, he basically had like 6 or 7 horns, a couple guitars. I got a funny story about the tambourines. Actually, that's a good one. But let me play this little clip here. So my buddy left. He popped his head out. This is a clip from the Bruce tour. So this is side stage. Just give you an idea of, a day in the life of over here on stage right. And this is, here we go. Bring it back. And
Cabbage says, "Turn the Page." That Metallica song.
Yeah, exactly. Here we go.
Are you mad?
So yeah.
Gail agrees that horn line on Turn the Page is epic. You hear that?
Yeah, let me
evenings when you're driving, it just gives you chills,
Well, that was the funny thing. That was kind of the inside joke though. When I got the gig, my buddies up at Ram's Head Live, Boo, rest in peace, Boo.
Rest in peace, Boo.
Oh man, Boo, he would get me and I'd show up to work up there for shifts and in between Seeger tours and stuff. And I walked down that long hallway and I never forget hearing him go, and just totally busted my chops, but playing the line, I can barely talk. I've had worse. What am I looking for here? What were we just talking about?
Talking about tambourines. You had the tambourine story.
Oh yeah.
Guess what? Horns, but then they didn't need a horn all the time, so he'd turn around and grab a tambourine.
Right, and that's the thing. So here I've got that coming at us here, and I'll tell you the story before we switch over there. Basically, am I lagging now?
No, you're good. You're keeping up.
Yep. So again, alto being, the rock dude he is, and 40 years of the same thing, and it sounds a certain way, and even as much, I'm tend to in my years been a know-it-all. Like most guys out on the road, we're all A-type personalities. Everybody knows everything, and
right.
But I've learned. I'm gotten much better. Like I try to learn something every day, and I learned a very simple thing here, and I should have known this as an audio guy, and all the thousands of hours I spent recording stuff and trying to, understand source and, just getting back to the basics, when you hang around guys like Todd Krusberg and he produces things that sound like an orchestra in a closet, it's just crazy.
Right.
That was back in the day. I'm not saying this closet now. I'm saying 30 years ago, like Todd, you could have put Todd in a closet in a VS 880 and it would sound like that. So anyway, with alto, he had this one again, like with Bruce and the guitar throw. Every night at one point in the song, at this certain song, the end of the song, he does his spin. And as he spins, he turns and he throws his favorite number one tambourine up into the sky, way over into tech world, and it disappears.
So he has a favorite tambourine, not just any tambourine.
No, not just any. Like he's like there's Bruce has got the number one that rides on the plane.
Uh-huh.
My man had a number one that pretty much should have ridden on the plane tambourine.
Right.
And I'll tell you why.
Wow.
And this is what I learned. Like, they really are drastically different. And you don't, as a producer and stuff now, as I'm getting older and learning, it's like there's a lot to that texture that's added that you don't naturally instantly hear, but it's there.
Right.
And if it's not the right sound, shaker, or whatever, it's not there, if you know what I'm saying.
Right.
And so my I was tasked with finding more of these number ones, and sure enough, the number one turned out to be a 30-year-old tambourine that, only dude living on the top of a mountain in Helsinki has on the internet. And he wants,
and he uses a particular type of goat skin in order to make it up, and
right. And he doesn't take cash, and he only takes goat skin. Exactly.
Yeah.
So it was quite the task. So what I was in search for these, because I thought I nailed it. I'm like, oh, they're this model, and looked at the internet first and ordered then we got these box sent to him, all these things, and left him in the dressing room set up. And one day he just came back. He's like, yeah, these are garbage. I'm like, what? In my head thinking, oh, he's just being a pain in the ass. No, it was straight facts. So here, I'm going to switch over. And he sent me this video and he says, this is what it sounds like. But mind you, the thing of this video, it's just total alto, because, he made sure that the way he framed this, like he's rocking out. He's rocking the tambourine. He's got the shirt open. He is a rock star. He was a rock star from just every waking moment. But the tambourine did have a very certain sound, and this was what I got sent.
And this was his way of making sure you knew that.
Yes, he was like, yes, I'm rocking. Tambourine time.
That's a nice sound of tambourine, though.
Yeah, though. No, but seriously.
Like, so he switches it up.
As far as tambourines go, that's the number one.
And he's showing you why he likes it.
What happened was number one got cracked because he tossed it a little too far one night.
Boy.
And finish it up.
Get some.
God love it. Get some alto, man. So
that's awesome.
Yeah. Oh, there's the hamster again. Gee, God, he's gonna get, like, I'm serious. If those dogs right there knew what was going on with that hamster, we'd have some serious drinking problems. Yeah. So Seeger Tour did that. Through the Seeger Tour, I met the guy. I did the Lukather thing. Where were we? We were going. We went. Toto. I went backward. One other thing a guy I didn't talk about. That was another super cool learning experience was I got hooked up through a buddy on the Bruce tour. He was a sound guy, Mr. Brett Dykes, indeed. He hooked me up with the Beck camp, and I got the gig looking after Smokey Hormel for, I think it's 2 or 3 tours. The first one being in South America, and that's where I met Sully Sullivan. He's a front of house guy. At the time he's like Rihanna. Beck, now he's like Chili Peppers. And Sully, just amazing, super smart guy. Had a great time. Met him, went down, rocked out in South America. Only worked with him a couple times. Haven't seen him in years since, but great group of dudes. The guy I worked for was Smokey Hormel. And the thing about Smokey,
what instrument did he play? What did he do?
Again, man, I'm the dude that they call when you're looking, you're trying to take care of a bunch of things. He played everything, man. He was the guy that,
okay.
He was a session cat, right? So he was Rick Rubin's go-to guy for many moons back in the day. So he plays all these different. I got a cool picture. So here's the Beck Festival stage.
Oh wow.
So far left is Smokey's rig. He just had a little I can't remember which, is it a Bassman with an extension cab. But he just had a couple oddball things. His main telly. He was more of a weird pedal guy like Beck, and Beck had all his. Here's another guy far there. Rest in peace, Looper, man. He passed away. Monitor guy. He was Petty's guy. Look at that monitor rig. But yeah, so that's Beck's guitar rig. I can't remember if that was when Justin was playing bass. JMJ was out there.
Is that Claire rig?
Yeah.
That's what I thought. Those monitors look like Claire stuff.
Claire, I'm pretty sure it's Claire. I mean, I can't remember if Sully's back and forth between them.
Okay.
And so you got that. Let me see what else I could find down here. So, but Smokey played all these weird instruments, a bunch of guitars. I think he spent his last couple. And again, I just lucked out. got the gig, it's not like I became his guy. It just was I was the guy.
Got the looking for it.
We went down and we toured all through South America, did a bunch of gigs with Beck. I think it was right before he did Morning Phase. I don't know. And like that dude Roger on keys and Joey Wanamaker on drums. So it was a very cool, just getting firsthand to see how those guys, because they're all producers, and engineers and musicians, and
Mike's asking about, so the pedal board that you were looking at, you had to maintain that too. Sometimes a pedal board itself could be like an instrument. Did you have those kind of needs where he would, or was he pretty self set up?
That pedal board was crazy. It was
because some guys are like, don't touch my pedals. And then other guys are like, dude, I have no idea what I'm doing with this stuff.
No, we had a relationship, like on the Bruce thing, like with Nils and I had a relationship. He trusted me. There was so much going on. It was honestly a 4-man job, but I'm a Jamaican local, the Lord of Mercy. I worked 14 jobs. So it's like,
right.
I basically did, it was a traveling guitar store tech. And, but like with Luke, it's like, it was a pretty much, he's got his thing, he wasn't trying to cut. They were like, they did their set. Like Nils had to be prepared for, Bruce had 400 tunes and he's just was in the reality of like, he's Bruce and he wanted to be able to turn around and go, hey, look, I don't care if we haven't played this song in 10 years. It's like, work it out. There's,
So Bruce would just call a song. He didn't, Bruce.
Yeah. I mean, there's so many people on stage. It's like, there's no Pro Tools or anything like that. Yeah. And he called a tune. Nils was the dude, like the pseudo, I guess you call
later.
Yeah, the informal musical director in a sense of like we had a Bible like between what we had compiled with the Bruce tunes and what Kevin was the ultimate Bruce's guy with all the information and the Bible of all the songs. But he really Nils wanted to be able to turn around and reproduce that sound, which it kept me busy. It was like I said, most tours Backline loads in at noon. Right. We were cracking the truck at 7:38. Missing breakfast some days just because it was, we put a whole day in. It's a big show. It was a long, it's like most people are like rocking 90-minute Pro Tools sets going start, and we're like, I move over here and I'm making this move here during this song. Like,
you got how many? It's like 9
hand write 23 tunes. You could guarantee you'd probably do 20 to 23 tunes, but you could guarantee that it was going to change all the time.
Every time, yeah.
And also redundancy, it's just like, it's easier now with audio and stuff to be redundant. You can solve streamline and racks and engines, but like when you're talking about trying to reproduce sounds with vintage instruments and stuff, it was staggering the amount of road cases of guitars, not just me, but just like the amount on that tour of.
So Nils would rely on the instrument and the amp for the sound, whereas Steve Lukather kind of would get to the pedals and the rack.
Steve had his sound. He always did his thing. Nils was playing a lot of parts. There was there was always mind you,
gotcha.
Little Steven's on stage, Bruce is on stage. There's a lot of guitar work going on, a lot of stuff, and there's when you get into frequency mashing and all that stuff, it was it's already
they're trying to fit into their places.
Yeah. Like Luke, it's like Toto, they're set every night, same way. Maybe change the song in and out, rehearse it during sound check. Boom, that's it. It's live. Definitely no Pro Tools or nothing, but it's the same thing. And Luke, it stays in his lane. It's like Nils, he likes to be all over the map. That's what he does. That's what he, as a musician, it's, if that makes any sense on that. And so, yeah, so there's that with like Steve's that way. Smokey, Smokey, those cats and Back, man, they're like really, they're into their sound. They're into the old pedals and all the vintage stuff, but it's also a bit of voodoo with them too. And yeah, it's kind of like,
vintage stuff is voodoo. A lot of voodoo involved.
Yeah, it's like
this noise. The next room's going to be that.
It's like just get it close enough. Which me as a guitar player, I'd be the same way. Even if I, leading up to like now that I'm trying to play and stuff, it's like even if I get to a point where I'd need to hire a guy to look after me, it's like I'd still be like, just get it. Like Smokey was like, hey man, just kind of get it close, and I'll come in and tweak it again, because it goes back to that lesson learned at that stage where that sound guy pissed me off, and I realized that I don't sound the same in the basement. It's like every room's different, every stage is different. That
really took you to the point of saying, I want to make sure whoever I never want to create that uncomfortable feeling for whatever musician I'm kind of working with. I want to be able to have these tools. And was there ever a moment when they were on stage and there was a panic moment or something broke? I mean, obviously there was listen. But how about it? There's got to be a couple of good ones where a pedal.
Talk about good ones. Here's one of the best ever. I still like I broad daylight festival. So, lights, whatever. Like the normal gig is like, we're playing in the dark. You're supposed to be guitar ninjas. It's like, I spent my whole gig at lightning speed trying to switch out guitars, turn on and off belt packs, and disappear before anyone sees us. Cause it's not the Roy Witte show. It's the Bruce Springsteen show or, Toto or whoever.
You got to get off that stage and not be
well, unfortunately, like, when you go to these places where it's light for 18 hours a day and there's just no way you're going to hide, and there's a technical issue, hence, or I'll like take you to the particular situation. Cause those pedal boards are a nightmare when you're, there's everything's loomed under the stage. Everything has to be clean. There's no taping cables down. So it's like, I had 100-foot looms of Megami stuff that just, talk about was the pedal board a nightmare. So the pedal board would go out a lot. One time it went out middle of the day and I just never forget. I found myself like, dude, I look like, look at me. I'm like Fred Flintstone in all black in the middle of the day on my stomach doing like the military crawl out to the pedal board from the riser, like thinking
trying to hide from everybody.
Yeah, I'm dead. And then all of a sudden, for a moment, I stop and I look over, and Springsteen is just looking down at me, and just gives me the look of just chuckles, like, "Get up and fix it." It's like we called you. But there was there some moments. Good Lord, have mercy. Yeah.
So you ran out, you take care of it, and
then you move on.
Different, You want to be discreet. I know when I had spent some time with Hall & Oates, I did not want to be on that stage any longer than I had to be, unless I got a chance to jam with them for sound check. Then I wanted to be there, but I know what you mean. You got that moment where you're like, this is not me. I don't want to even be seen. And I want to fix it and forget it and get out of there.
So I came across something here. We can,
okay.
Another cool thing, like on the Lukather. And so one of the deals when I was out with Luke, so this was a whole another, like where back to, like I said, the Mama Jamma, Jimmy's Chicken Pack, Geppetto days, the early tour, man, the multifaceted guy, the club, all like even after I'd done, stadiums with Springsteen as a tech, it's like I'm back here, I'm with Luke, and one of the things he said, hey, look, in between the Toto run, we're gonna do a 2-week thing with my band, like just like Nils had he has a band of guys, and we're gonna open up for on the
Steve's albums are great. I have a couple of them.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's just amazing. So he's like, we're gonna open up on the Peter Frampton, Guitar Circus thing, and I'm like, whatever, bro. He says, but I need, so I need you to like, you need my guitars, but can you? So I ended up basically, it was like tour manager. We had one bus, everybody on the bus. I was tour manager, guitar guy, and did monitors. And one or two of the shows I had,
the Ringo Starr. Is this the Ringo Starr tour?
No. We didn't talk about Ringo. We'll go back to that. That was another thing. In between Ringo was a whole other thing happening during the Bruce thing where I took care of Wally Palmer from the Romantics. But why I've got this picture queued up. So we're out on the Frampton Circus, and the whole gig was basically Luke's band opened up, did their set, and then Luke would come back out and sit in and jam. Well, this is a very cool moment because it came full circle talking about Ringo. Well, on the Ringo tour, I was looking after Wally Palmer on our side of the stage, and Edgar Winter was on our side. So it was kind of like doubling up with the keyboard guy, kind of just taking care of stage right. And Jeremy was over on stage left looking after Rick Derringer. Okay, well, in one of these cities, Rick D came out to sit in. So I have this photo here. Let me go to it. So what you have here is you got Luke sitting there looking at Rick D rocking, him and both Peter, and they're all, having a moment. The guitar gods.
3 guitar greats just hanging out.
In a very like club setting.
What's Pete playing? What is that?
If you want to, I have his whole pictures of all his rigs.
That's his. Wow. Oh, you have some Pete Frampton.
I have all the Frampton stuff from that tour. Like I said, I'm as well. I'm an archivist, man. It was like I was like, I'm not. There's no way I was going to let that moment go by and not. So let me see.
Yeah.
What
So Peter, for those that are Peter, for those that are watching that don't know, Peter Frampton obviously was famous for using the talk box. So he got known for having being able to make the guitar, talk to the crowd and make it not sound like a guitar, and also famously lost a guitar for 35 years, something like that.
Yeah, there it is.
That's the guitar. That's
the headstock.
Okay, so this guitar was lost at sea, washed up onto an island, and 30 some odd years later finds its way back to Peter Frampton. How monumental is that? And you got to hang out with it.
Yeah, I was, I'm a people person. I schmoozed up to the guitar tech enough to be like, hey, bro. I was like, hey, bro, I know, like, all I need is a picture. I'm like, I get to walk by in the guitar rack every day. So yeah, there's that. And then I got some.
You're like, I know what that is.
There's his racks.
Rack. Oh no, that's Steve. That's Peter Frampton's rack.
Yeah, it's Frampton.
Wow, I don't think of him as having a rack like that.
Yeah, you wouldn't think, but let me see. So I'll walk you through. So that's the rack.
Holy moly, that's a rack and a half.
Hold tight here. Let's see what do we got. Oh, well, on that same note, let's talk about this. We'll work up to the big stuff. So
okay,
this is a great story. So right at the tail end of Luke being a total team player, okay, just super cool guy. He's crazy like the rest of us. But serious musician. And so here's what this. I'll picture this for you. Last show of the run, I have to ship his gear and his pedal boards out. Like the guy, basically when his set was done at the top of the show, like the cartridge guy needed to take the stuff, his real pedal board, his main rig, and get it. So it was going to be at the next Toto thing in the next city. Like we were bouncing from this right back to Toto, but he had one more jam to sit in. He's like, man, just put me together a TS9 and a delay and a loop and a volume pedal and
basics
in a tuner, and just make sure that the delays in the fucking loop. And I'm like, okay. So even better, I was trying. Okay. I put that to the side. I'm like, what do I do? So that is the cheese board from the show before, from catering, that was left on the bus.
Get out of here, really?
I'm serious. And I said, Luke, look, man. I said, what do you think? He said, oh man, I love it. I love it. So that's why I love this pictures, because that's how real dog Luke is. Like at the end of the day, he went through all his phases of all those other stuff, but at the end of the day, that's what he got up and went head to head, on the big finale at the end of the night with Frampton on that last show, was with that right there. That's cheese board, man. It's all about the cheese board double,
Yep. Oh, that's that's funny stuff.
There we go. So so behind are the Leslies, the dual Leslies.
Okay. For the guitar?
Yeah, remember that rack, his rack?
That's feeding those Leslies back there. Okay.
Yeah. And those are the Marshalls for his different heads.
And
that's the Leslie setup. So that was ridiculous. Let me see what I got here.
And he has all that control at his feet, or did he have a
Oh yeah. I have the where'd it go? Oh, those were Smokey's guitars. Yeah, I'm out of sequence on these pictures.
Oh, but that's back to the Beck run right there.
Yeah, that's Beck stuff. I'm kind of just pulling. I had them staged on my desktop, and it's hard to see. So that was that. Let's see, maybe I brought it up. Let me go back here for a second. Oh, there here's a good Bruce shot. So
you got a gerbil looking in your window there, buddy.
That's scary. All right, so this was the view every summer for 7 summers. When we do the death march, or we call it in stadiums, where basically you go and you do 6 weeks, you get a week off, another 6 weeks, pretty much the whole summer, 7 in a row, and this is somewhere in Germany. But that's Bruce down front, just doing what he does.
That's him right there in the middle, right in front of the crowd.
Yep, singing, doing his thing. But that was the view there. Let's see. Get rid of that picture. What else do I got? I got Cubase. Oh, what do you got? That's let me close it.
And we actually do have another software question from Mike. Mike is really involved tonight in the chat. Thanks first off, Mike, for being for asking questions. Let's see. He's asking about rolling guitar tab. That's not something I've ever. That's a good question for probably all three of us, because that's something.
What is the question?
He's asking, what software would you recommend for taking a video file that has rolling guitar tab and syncing it? to external audio tracks.
Yeah, and
Sounds like
I'm
a Pro
still
Tool.
learning. I'm still learning. I certain things I get good at. I don't do anything like that right now, so I wouldn't be able to go.
Yeah.
Gotta go for. Let me pull up this.
That I would do something like that in Pro Tools or something. But yeah, it's funny, because if you were doing the BET thing now, then you would have to know that those
Here's a guitar.
kind of tools, that come into play at the time. Sometimes you forget how to use them.
Yeah, there's so much out there, and it's always changing. It's like I'm just in the world of like when I have to do something. If it's not something I'm doing all the time, which either playing guitar or actually multi-tracking, just normal stuff. It's like I just look it up like everybody else. You check it out. Here's here. Did I lose you?
Nope, I'm here. I just am reading this comment. Mike left that Gibson just released a recreation of that Pete Frampton guitar, which is pretty cool.
And here's another classic. During those first rehearsals with Luke, I'm sure you've seen that back on the early Toto and Hot Lick days. That's the Les Paul.
That's the Rosanna Les Paul.
Yeah.
Rosanna in that video and one other.
Yeah, one day it was just because we were all set up. We had time and it was close.
Wow.
He brought over. He had me clean it up and set it up. And another one was like, oh, I got to snap a picture of this one. I'm touching history here.
Yeah, that's the one. Man, he wrote some amazing stuff at the age of 19 and 20 years old and just never stopped,
Oh, it's just staggering. Oh, so let me see. Here's Luke's pedal board at the time.
Oh.
That's turned the wrong way. No, I don't want to do that one. Let's see what else.
I got your full screen, so anything you pull up.
Here you go.
Showed. We're not seeing that. We're seeing your background right now.
Oh, I know. I'm leaving that up until I cue it up because if not, it'll just be
random.
It'll be a gray. Here you go.
Thanks for sharing all these pics too, and everybody. Thanks for hanging out tonight. Roy Boomer Witte showing off some of the cool stuff from. At this point, we're talking about this is the pedal.
That was the Bradshaw switcher stuff for the Frampton rig.
Okay. Wow. Yeah, and he has an old original whammy in there, and he's had that switching system since. That's one of the early Bradshaw ones, and I think he's had that for a while.
Here you're going to talk about weird instruments. Here was one of the setups for Smokey side stage.
That's on Beck tour. That's a Beck instrument. That looks like something you would find on a Beck tour.
Exactly, man. It was that kind of vibe, which is cool. I learned
that's cool.
Okay, Smokey's pedal board and the Beck rod.
Yes,
He brought it. It was basically a bag of pedals, and how the standard I got a guy taking care of me, clean this up, and so that was so I could basically get in and off of festival stages fast. That wasn't like he didn't show up with it like that, really. Most of it was like you just had to.
He just kind of threw you.
It was ever changing. We're gonna do this. Here's a cool shot from that. I'll give you a performance shot of these guys. So if you look, that's Beck in the middle there on the ground on his knees. That's Smokey playing his telly. You got Roger on the keyboard there. South America somewhere.
Okay. That Beck tour must have been fun. It was pretty laid back.
Oh, dude, way laid back. Like I said, man, it was like we're all on one bus. Beck was. Beck did his separate thing, but yeah, we all Sully, everybody, Looper. Again, I just met all these guys on that tour and only worked with them a couple of times, but you know how the road is. It's like it's like going to do war for 3 weeks with somebody. It's like you always you never forget those cats.
Yep, exactly.
That's just how
here. I see a RF rack.
Yeah. Well, here's another. So this is old time rock and roll with Seeger. This is
so this is Seeger. Okay.
Yeah, so this was like, every night it was like a karaoke show because everybody knew all the songs. It's just, Yeah, so that was the the view for years.
Did you ever get numb to that, or did you find that exciting all the time?
Absolutely, bro. It was total numbness. Are you kidding me? It's a gig.
Really? Yeah.
Yeah.
The first time you looked out and you saw that on a tour like that, do you remember that moment? The very first time you looked out to like a crowd that size, and because I remember those moments in all sorts of situations, as a tech, as a musician, as and as a player,
Yeah.
or even standing in a crowd that size, you get an anxiety feeling. And you start to think, does that ever? I know I thought to myself, will that ever go away? And I still get I get a little nervous before I do a show like this. I still get
I
that
was
kind
just
of
about to say,
but
bro. I for the first time, because again, no one's been gigging at all, doing anything. Like
yeah.
I had that moment, like, well, I better eat at a certain time.
Right, yeah. And you have to plan it like you did. You get that plan in your head, and it's nice to have a routine. And some of it can be so impressive, but still such a routine. So that's a great.
Yeah. So that's a Claire rig, but that was like, yes, that's the thing is I have a whole bunch of at some other point we'll do another segment or something, like we'll get into this tech bench tweaker thing I want to do or whatever. But
yeah,
dude, I made it a point I would go and get like completely centered on arenas and stuff at lighting focuses when they're empty. So I have a lot of really cool empty arena stuff like that. Just again, running around. I don't sleep much. And that's the funny thing is a lot of the other, and then why I befriended a lot of the audio guys and stuff, because it was the audio guy in me. They'd always be like, why is this Backline guy hanging out at 8? Like on the Seeger tour, we didn't have to load in at noon at 8. It was noon. It was chill. It was the same thing as stage manager. We didn't have much. It was a total different thing. Like I said, it was arenas, pretty much the same songs, and the guy, it wasn't like the show wasn't about the guy I was taking care of, so it was really chill for me.
cool.
Whereas, when the real stress is like when you're dealing like Luke, it's like he's great, super cool, but like it's like it's effing game time, man. When he's on stage and you're his guy, if you're the monitor guy or the front of house guy or whatever, it's like,
you're with them. You got to be.
But it's a respect thing with him, because it's like he's Luke. I'll talk about funny stories like tour managing for me. He's him and Vi. They've got these guys carry around him. Vi and Satriani carry around fake teeth, dude. It freaked me out the first time we were checking into a hotel.
They carry around fake teeth, like
goofy, like costume teeth you see in the
okay, like Dracula teeth or something like that. Okay,
no, like makes you look like you're from the Beverly Hillbillies teeth. Okay?
Okay.
And the first time I experienced him was we were checking in a hotel, and he's next to me, and I'm trying to get him his room. And as I turn around and hand him his key, he's standing there. I was wondering why the woman was like getting this crazy look. And I turn around, he's got these teeth in his mouth. Like, it's just, I'm like, oh my God. Well, it turns out that's a thing. Him, Vi, and Satch, they all have those. They turn around and they throw them in and they mess with people. So yeah, I got sidetracked with that. What was I talking about? Oh, we were talking about this, and I wanted to find something else. Again, this is just so many stories,
here's a question. If Frampton's use of a voice box crapped out, would you go to a Wawa?
Well, I wasn't, that's the thing, is I wasn't Frampton's guy. I just
yes. I would think probably not. Being that Frampton is so particular about that, he probably has several backups of.
Oh yeah, it's redundancy central. I had his voice box here.
Yeah, he definitely would have backups of that, because it's just going to be
this. We're talking about to just kind of not sidetrack, but it was a Toto gig. This venue is just stunning. You can see the backdrop. Wow. So this is like in, I think I want to say Sweden or Switzerland, but it's so freaking cool. You drive around back, and they have like this out back. They have basically a dock outside of the green room with little boats, and you can go freaking row around, and people are rowing around during the gig, and there's like a sauna.
Wait, back. That area in the front there, that green area, that's water?
It's all water behind there, bro. It's a mineral. It's an old. They turned a mineral, old mineral quarry into a venue, and it's like I said, there's little rowboats that the artists are allowed to, like, after they eat dinner and stuff backstage, they can go and row around on. It's just so crazy.
Wow. That's cool. That is, I thought it was a grassy field like I was looking at right there in front, but that's all more.
No. That's the thing. Let's see. I don't know how.
Those are some epic. I've seen definitely some epic venues in my time, and things like that. Those are the kind of moments that sit with you when you see something like that. Like I remember Castles, doing a couple of events at Castles, and those are the kind of things where I can still picture that, and I bet you can still remember particular moments of that day alone. It's Jeff Everhart says it's a moat. That's funny.
It is. Well, yeah. It kind of is a moat. Whatever.
Yeah.
It was tripping, man. It was one of those things where it's like, and even funnier, like small worlds collide. Is like Sting was there 3 days later, so Noel, another guy from Annapolis, was like right behind me, and this is thousands of miles away on the other side of the planet.
And Will Miller, another engineer that actually we're going to have Will on the show here in a couple of weeks. He's done some amazing stuff. He says, I'm amazed that after 20 plus years on the road, how many venues he still hasn't seen.
That's, you know what? Can I be honest with you? That's one of the things I was talking with someone the other day is like all the places I've been, 32 countries, 185 cities. I've never done Red Rocks.
Oh, beautiful place. Wow. Yeah.
Never even been there.
Wow. And with all the artists that you've worked with, you would have thought, of course, some of them have done Red Rocks, but it just never.
Yeah, it just didn't. Yeah, man. Never. I just kind of was like, okay.
It's a beautiful place for sure.
Yeah. So there's lots of, I don't know. There's so much. It's a huge world, is what it is, and you get to get out and see it. That's what that's the moral of the story is. It's like,
You were saying Red Rock sucks. You're lucky. It's more than 4 trucks. Yeah, we did it with the Everclear tour, and it was.
I guess it's more of like it's a visual thing. I'm looking at it, going, man, that's that. And it's just all the story, like some of the great live shows and stuff, your recordings and stuff. It's just one of those things. You're like, oh, Red Rocks. It's just funny. I sit back in conversations, and I'm just like, man, I've never been there.
Never been there. Yep. And that's pretty wild. It's and you get lost in the tours too, because you don't even get to see a lot of the cities that you go to. You're in and out, especially as a tech, that.
Well, yes and no. Like it is like that for most departments. I was like, I worked my butt off to get there, but I was blessed on like when I, really made the, with the Springsteen thing being so big, it was like, when we got into the stadiums, like it takes 2 days to set that up. So we our crew lucked out, and we got a lot of time, man. And all these, I got to see the world like big time, like, and have a day off, just endless days walking around cities all this, Italy, you go on and on and on now. But with that said, there's still places like never did Japan, never been to China. It's like I went all the way, I think, like Istanbul. I can't remember. Like on the Ringo, we did some Turkey and a couple places that far. I mean, I did go to Russia with Ringo. We did two gigs in Russia, so that was pretty far. That was one of the farthest. And actually came across one of my favorite places, which is right on the border, Latvia, Riga in Latvia. Yeah, man, it's like basically the equivalent of Annapolis.
But in Russia.
Yeah, but 5 times. Sorry, am I locking up?
Yeah, you're locking up. You have stuff open still. That might be slowing you down a little bit. There you go.
Yeah. So it really does. So we're learning this OBS and it's the trouble.
Hopefully, when we watch it on replay, we're all synced up and all that. We've been going for an hour and a half. I've been drinking coffee. I'm gonna have to hit the restroom real soon. So I'm going to want to wrap it up here.
All right.
But what I want to do, we were talking about some stuff to do in the future between us. But one thing I want to do, is I want to have you do a little jam. And after I have a number of us on as individual guests, I'd like to have maybe have a couple of guys back on to compare some stories, see who's crossed paths, who has done what together, like who amongst the crowds of the guys that I interview, who has some familiar stories and some some of the similar artists that have worked together. So
Absolutely.
yeah, why don't you play us out here for a couple minutes? I'll
just do up a couple passes, couple bars. I created this loop recently. I'll turn off this mic so it doesn't bleed in, but I think you should be able to hear the guitars. They should be pretty balanced. Just give me an up or down if it's distorting when I start playing. But this is from that little neighborhood Eastport. It's called an Eastport thing, and it's from that band. It's a little groovy thing. But maybe this will be a thing that we play at some point.
Right on, cool. Well, it was great having you on the show, Boomer. First off, really appreciate it, and thanks to everybody that's hanging out here in the chat, and thanks for all the questions. And Boomer, go for it. Play a little something for us. Remember, bring that microphone
down. Can you hear it?
Yeah, sounding good. Bring it down. When you start playing, it starts to get a little bit loud. Bring it down a little bit, and I'll bring it back. There you go. Very nice.
So was that balanced?
Yeah, it sounded pretty good. You might I think with this with the stream audio, it starts to squish it a little bit. When you start to play, you pop out over the loop a little bit, but that's it's always fun to get that groove back, right? You know, after doing it all, like you were saying, as Steve Wright said, you'll never play guitar again. So here we are trying to prove Steve wrong.
Well, yeah. I mean, I stayed. I guess it was more like you'll never play in a band again. And now, yeah, we're gonna play in a band.
All right, last question for the evening. Mike, one more from Mike. He wants to know if you ever hit Orange in France, or ever visit the Orange in France. I'm not too sure.
Orange, the venue.
The venue, yeah.
Yeah, I've pretty much done all. If it's an arena or theater or outdoor thing, we've done most of them. In
Europe,
yeah. I mean, it does sound familiar. It sounds like one of those ones where it was real hot and it didn't, no AC and it just rocked. Those are the shows,
Yeah.
And what's that? What do you say in LA?
He said, yeah, and he's in LA, and he just happens to have never been to the Hollywood Bowl or even Guitar Center in Hollywood. I know a lot of people that like to avoid Guitar Center. I got no problem with Guitar Center. I know there's ethical problems with some people, but man, I got friends that work for them, and I get my stuff from there sometimes, and that's just the way gear goes, Sometimes you just gotta do what you gotta do. Well,
sometimes you just gotta stop everything and drive right there and get it.
And get whatever it is you need, yeah.
Or push click. But anyway, yeah, man, I'll let you go. This is awesome. And let me click back to front over here. So I'll let you do your thing.
Yeah, bro. Yeah, man. Hey, thank you, Boomer. I really appreciate it. I mean, God, you still have so many. The hamster is gonna kill us. You have names that you haven't even dropped yet, and so I want to have you back on. Like I said, I want to have a couple of sessions where I have, after we get a number of people together, we get a couple of us back together and have like 4 or 5 of us in a group talk and compare some stories. So I'd love to have you back one time for that for sure.
Absolutely.
Stuff for the future.
Anyone out there, subscribe. Click subscribe.
On your way out the door, hit over to Boomer's channel, Lupa Boom, and visit his website, lupaboom.com. And
I'll be adding a bunch more soon.
And you guys, everybody, thank you, Boomer, for being here. Thank you guys all for tuning in. If you're watching on the replay, thank you for watching the replay. Boomer, once again, thanks for being here on the channel. You guys, everybody have a great night. There you go, www.loopaboom.com. All right, Boomer, thank you. Good night, pups. Look at the pups just chilling back there.
Oh, Oompa doesn't matter. He's like, whatever, dude. You done yet? So,
not phased. Didn't even phase him with the guitar. All right, bro. I'll see you soon. Thank you, everybody.
All right.
Double D Guitar out.
Everyone be safe.